Hello everyone, I am Josue Crimz Rojano, and with me is Michael Pramawat, and we are watching the top 8 of the Rockford, Illinois City Championships. This is actually the final stop of the Chicago Marathon, so I'm expecting an interesting game here.
Yeah. This is the final stop. Like you said, this is the final stop. So players have had a lot of time to really digest what each other is playing, and we see an interesting deck choice from the player on our left, Justin Young. He's playing Garbador.
Yeah, well, at least he's playing Trebuchets because he's got a couple of them in his opening hand. And Garbador is kind of an interesting choice. You see him his opponent Vince Blasko right now. But yeah, Garbador seems to be really taking advantage of this metagame here in the Chicago area, trying to take advantage of all the Keldeo Blastoise going around as well as the Electric and also Darkrai, obviously.
Yeah, and speaking of Darkrai, that's what happens to be the player on the right. Vince Blasko is playing. So, this is going to be a really interesting matchup, but it depends whether Vince plays Crushing Hammers. I did see an Enhanced Hammer, so I'd assume so. In which case, this is going to be an interesting dynamic between Crushing Hammer and the one energy attachment deck, Garbodor.
Correct. Now Justin's going to get to go first, and with his two Trebuchets, he's really looking to get some sort of an attacker in play as well, because once he gets a Garbodor in play, he's going to be able to slow down Vince's deck. Vince's momentum is no longer going to really be there because he's not. He obviously doesn't play switches, and with having to play a fair game with his retreat costs, kind of makes him puts him at a disadvantage since Terrakion has three retreat and Darkrai has a couple of himself.
Yeah, so you see the level ball in Justin's deck. That's nice because it gets the Trebuchets out pretty easily. And we see a couple tools. Maybe he wants to play him down. Or you might just go for the Juniper. It's kind of a hard decision, but we see a fighting energy, so that indicates like Landorus and Mewtwo's in the deck. So we'll see how this works out for Justin.
Now it's interesting to me that he chose not to play these tools. He actually just discarded them. So what do you actually think the reason for that would be? Now you see him do garbage collect on one of them and put it on top of his deck.
It's I wouldn't think too much into it. You do want your tools on the field, but they can get tool scrappered, but they end up in the discard anyways this way. So it's just whatever. At this point, he does have a Garbodor in his hand, so he's in a pretty decent shape. If he is going to be drawing a tool with it, so we'll see how this works out. He does have another Juniper in hand too, so he's going to be fine. Oh, and we do see a Crushing Hammer come down for Vince.
Oh yeah. So we do see that Crushing Hammer coming down from Vince, which obviously tells us that he is playing the Crushing Hammer version of Darkrai, which actually should have a pretty good matchup against Justin. And yeah, you are right that discarding the tools isn't that big of a deal. I would have liked to see him actually attach them. That way he would have been able to give himself a good draw step here, or maybe even put something like Juniper on top of his deck if he needed it or something like that. But anyways, yeah, Justin Young gets a Garbodor in play with that tool that he got put on top of his deck, and he does have the opponent's Darkrai kind of locked up in that active position since it has to retreat.
Yeah, at this point, we're just waiting to see if Justin can maybe pop out a Landorus with a switch and a fighting. Really start dealing that damage out early and just trying to like knock out the Sableye as soon as possible because they are actually like the threat in Vince's deck. Sableye can get back the Crushing Hammers, which in turns really spirals the game out of control for Justin.
Yeah, exactly. We don't. Okay, well, there's that Ultra Ball. So I was going to say we don't really have an attacker out of Justin, and that's really the only piece of the puzzle that's missing for him. You see a Landorus, though, so he will be able to start attacking because I think I see a switch in his hand as well.
Yeah.
So now that he's able to actually use his Hammer Time attack and actually hit the Darkrai for weakness for 60 damage, it puts it on a 3-turn clock as well as I'm assuming he's going to be hitting the Sableye as well to try to get 3 prizes in 3 turns if Vince doesn't actually have some sort of response here.
Yeah, we do see a Tool Scrapper in Vince's hand, so that's pretty fortunate. I can't imagine him playing more than like 1 or 2. So this is going to be a nice option for Vince, because like what he's going to be able to do now is he's going to be able to Tool Scrapper, and then he's going to be able to, if he has he doesn't have any darks in, maybe he can get a Energy Switch. If he can pull this off, then what he can do is Junk Hunt for the Tool Scrapper and a Catcher, and then just constantly catcher up the Garbador, because eventually Justin's just going to run out of switches.
Yeah, that is really unfortunate for him that he didn't have a way to really use Junk Hunt at the same turn on the same turn because he would have been able to pick up that Tool Scrapper. And here we go. We see the whoa wow. We actually see a plus power as well out of Justin, but we also see a tool attached to the Garbodor. So now no longer will Vince have free retreat, but he's also going to be he's also going to have his Sableye knocked out, which means he won't be able to Tool Scrapper, or I'm sorry, he won't be able to pick up the Tool Scrapper through a Junk Hunt unless something interesting happens.
Yeah, it's curious to me that Vince opted not to play N last turn. He did see his opponent discard 2 supporters with Ultra Ball, kind of signaling that Justin did in fact have a third supporter. So I would have maybe liked to see Vince just kind of go for the energy switch and use the N, really.
Exactly. Now we do see a retaliate out of Vince, which actually puts a lot of pressure on Justin. He's gonna have a lot of damage on his Landorus, as well as the fact that Terrakion now threatens to knock him out with any one energy, or even something as simple as a Dark Patch and an energy attachment to the Darkrai. I mean, there's several ways that this Landorus can get knocked out, and we see an N out of Justin. He's going to draw himself 5 cards while Vince gets 6. And Justin's really looking for some sort of a backup attack or something to really be able to keep pressure going after his Landorus dies.
Yeah, it's... I guess the best thing for Justin at this point would be maybe another Landorus or a Mewtwo. He really needs to start lay down an attacker and then just kind of go at it. But he does get a catcher here, which is nice. But Darkrai can actually just retreat for 2 energies, which is okay too.
Yeah, exactly. Something as simple as an energy switch or anything really is going to put Vince in a pretty good position. Obviously, a dark energy as well as an energy switch would be absolutely perfect right now.
Yeah, so
part of darkness energy, which means that he should have something going for him here. That Ultra Ball should find him a Darkrai as well, just like it just did. And yeah, I expect to see some sort of damage out of Vince here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a Dark Patch in Vince's hand, so that's going to be pretty helpful. He's going to be able to Dark Patch here, get an energy card onto the active Darkrai, or he might be thinking of sacrificing it, which would be an interesting choice, but I would like him to maybe just go for gold and go for the energy switch. It's hard to tell. Yeah, so let's just see what he does here.
Yeah, I'd like to see that as well. Really, not being able to Tool Scrapper or Junk Hunt for that Tool Scrapper that one turn, I think kind of sets Vince back so much, because if he would have been able to Junk Hunt down that turn, he would have not had any issues getting a return KO here.
So it's interesting that Justin opts to take the knockout here. I may have preferred to see just a simple pass and just kind of wait for new cards to come up. Mm-hmm. That way he can build another attacker, maybe get an EXP share on another Landorus. So when this Landorus gets knocked out, the energy flow still continues, because Vince's deck, it is running Terrakion, and it's running Crushing Hammer. That means there's something he's not running. Maybe it's high counts in Crushing Hammer, things like that. So, the Crushing Hammer strategy may not be viable for Vince. So, just kind of getting more attackers on the field would have been good.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you here. He kind of set himself up to put himself in this exact position when he decided to use that attack. He knew that the Pokemon was going to get... Vince actually had several ways of doing that. So, really, Justin puts himself in this hole, and I'm not actually too happy with that, because now, without any attackers, with only really having Garbadors and Trubbishes to put any type of non-existent pressure here, you just see Vince be completely in the driver's seat, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't take a prize return from here on out.
Well, he is going to be able to put a Juniper back on top, which is nice. It'll get him out of that hole he's in. I would have liked to maybe see the Mewtwo come down and then just use the energy retrieval, and though I don't even know if he has any fighting energy in his discard. He might not, because of the way EXP share has been keeping energies on the board. But
yeah, that is true. I don't know. I don't particularly like this situation that Justin's in, obviously. We're going to see him actually drop a Mewtwo, and well, yeah, there was a fighting energy in the discard pile, so I would have liked to see him do that last turn, but either way, he's going to do that this turn. And I think his only real hope here is just to really hope his opponent doesn't have that Pokemon catcher for the Garbador, and so that he can actually start taking some prizes with that Mewtwo. Obviously, Darkrai's Eviolite plus Psychic Resistance really puts a damper on that.
So we see a 4 switches in the discard from Justin. So at this point, Vince could actually just hang back and then go all day with Crushing Hammer if he gets out of Sableye. He can just pay the retreat cost, get Tool Scrappers back, get Dark Patches back, and eventually just Crushing Hammer his way to victory if he wanted to.
Yeah, Vince has several ways that he can actually seal this deal. Obviously, it's not fully over yet, but just Vince has too many attackers, and he's definitely on the driver's seat. And it's just going to be interesting to see what type of line of play he takes. Obviously, having something like a Mewtwo or a Terrakion on the bench is also tempting. Getting that first attack in on that Pokemon, as well as putting some damage on the Garbodor, or just knocking out the Trubbish. Just several different things that Vince can do here, and I don't really see a way for him to screw it up.
Yeah, I would like to maybe another attack path for Vince here would maybe be catch up the Terrakion and then just kind of hit it. Don't knock out the Trubbish, but maybe hit the Mewtwo and then or hit the Garbodor. Mm-hmm. And then at that point you can just kind of poke away at the Terrakion and then just go, hey, once your Terrakion's knocked out, I'm perfectly fine with knocking out that Trubbish. Things like that.
Yeah. Seeing as how Vince only has to take 3 prizes, I think personally, now that I think about it, yeah, there's the catcher. I think, yeah, okay. He's going to get that Mewtwo. He's going to actually knock out the Trubbish, I believe. Yep, and put himself in a 2-prize position where all he really needs to do is use a Pokemon catcher on that Mewtwo and win this game.
So we see Justin forget about EXP share for a little bit, and he just scoops the game. He knows he's out of switches and all that. Given that board state, if Justin had put a switch, committed a switch back on top of the deck, if he played a little bit tighter, maybe he could have taken it. But, game 1 goes to Vince.
Yeah, Vince really started off kind of rocky. Justin actually had more or less an ideal start, except for, obviously, the fact that he didn't have any attackers to really put any pressure on Vince with. And that was kind of the story of the game. Even though Justin did get his Garbodor in play and Vince was kind of, tickled by that ability, so to speak. You still got to see how once Vince had the attackers and Justin didn't, the entire game went Vince's way. Vince got to maintain pressure while Justin was kind of just trying to find a way to restabilize. So even though Justin had the early game, the mid game and late game were all Vince, and he took a very easy game 1. Now it's going to be interesting to see if Justin has a better start for game 2, or if Justin just really gets more attackers in play game 2. Obviously, he doesn't lack attackers. He's got several. He's got his Terrakion, he's got his Landorus, and he's got his Mewtwo. It's just he fell into a position where he just couldn't find them in time.
Yeah, I wonder if, when you're playing from behind, there's really only, one viable option for victory, and it's really up to the player who's behind to kind of find it. And, maybe this time we'll see a pretty good... maybe Justin will be ahead this time, and then, maybe he's been just used to playing from ahead for most of the day. So we'll see how this game works out.
So basically what you're trying to say is that he's used to being a little bit more fortunate than he was this game, and he didn't really know how to handle the lack of luck.
Those are your words, not mine.
I've learned how to read you over the years. But basically Justin here gets a relatively good start. He starts with a Landorus, immediately attaches a fighting energy to it, and gets a Trubbish in play. Now he also Junipers, so there is very little that Justin can complain about this game. This game seems to be going exactly the way he'd want all of his games to go. And we're going to see 30 damage immediately put on that Sableye, so a plus power would knock it out.
One thing I've noticed about Justin's over this game, or last game and this game, he plays really fast. He moves his hands really quickly, and that's one of the traits I've noticed from a lot of mid high level players is they actually just play too quickly. So, I would like to see maybe Justin slow down a little bit and kind of consider his options.
I call that Henry Pryor syndrome, just so you know.
Is it
Um,
really?
I call it because if you remember Henry Pryor, who we've actually covered before, has by far the fastest hands I think I've ever seen. He might actually have like the fastest hands in the world. That's not even a joke. He might actually have the fastest, most jittery hands in the world. Um, and we see a crushing hammer out of Vince. This time he got tails, so obviously not what you'd like to see your crushing hammers do, but at least he does know that he's trying to put some pressure on it. And something like a junk hunt right now for that crushing hammer and maybe even that computer search that he's about to use would be pretty nice. Junk hunt is such a good attack. I can't say enough about this attack. It quickly became my favorite attack in the game early on in the season, and I can't say enough good things about it. I've won so many games off of just the back of that one attack and a lot of luck, obviously.
Yeah, so we do see a computer search for an energy search for a dark, which is going to enable him to junk hunt, which is, so junk hunt's a really nice fixer. Your hand can be kind of like dead, but then junk hunt saves the day, or like your hand is like, there's a lot of strategies involved with junk hunt. So Sableye is really one of those cards that is arguably the best supporter Pokemon in the game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And we see a plus power out of Justin right away, as well as his second energy. So this is exactly what Justin wants to do. He knocks out that Sableye in 2 attacks. He puts 30 damage on the Darkrai, and he progresses his energies so that Crushing Hammer really won't do very much other than slow him down from using his final attack. The Crushing Hammer does get played, and it's another Tails. It's a second Tails. Instead of getting the Computer Search, by the way, he picked up an Energy Search, which he's about to use right now. So he's very energy light, and he just didn't want to have to waste some cards discarding towards the Computer Search in order to just find what an Energy Search can find for no cards.
Yeah, what Vince really is going for here is maybe a Dark Patch and an Energy Switch. If you can get those two, he can get the Retaliate off, which is pretty huge, especially considering that Justin still has no Garbador in play. So even if he did have a Garbador, there's no tools on the Trebuchets. So he can, if Vince can pull this Retaliate off this turn, he's in pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm. I do agree, and he does play an N, netting him a 1-card advantage, drawing 6 while his opponent only draws 5 since he knocked out that Sableye. We really do want to see that play out of Vince. If he doesn't have something like that, I would like to see him capture up a Trubbish or something. Just slow his opponent down. Don't let him get 3 energies in play without any real resistance. And we do see a Pokemon catcher onto the Darkrai and the switch, so it doesn't matter what he did. Justin had all the answers, and he's going to be able to knock out this Darkrai right now.
Yeah, I actually would have maybe preferred seeing the Sableye captured up. I think Sableye is really the backbone of the threats that can take you out. So, because you can just kind of Landorus past Darkrai at any point, and that Darkrai really wasn't doing anything, but the Sableye is just so deadly against the 1 energy attached decks.
Isn't it so? You have so many options here. You can obviously just capture your opponent until he runs out of switches. You can play for the long game if you truly want to, and you can fall behind by something as silly as 4 prizes and still be in decent shape because you know that your opponent's eventually going to run out of energies, and you'll be able to pull it off. We do see that Garbador come into play as well as that Pokemon tool as well. So no longer will Vince have any abilities, and we can definitely see him audible onto that Sableye whenever he truly wants, and he can kind of steal a very long game out of off of Justin.
Well, I think Justin's gonna go for the big land judgment. Yeah, and he's gonna do for 150. So that's gonna be huge. And
I guess he doesn't have a choice since his opponent threatens to knock him out anyways. But that does kind of put him in a rough spot again. I know that he does get all of Vince's energies off the board, but at the same time, he gets a lot of his own energies off the board. And again, I mean, he can always just run into that Sableye junk hunt scenario where he's just not going to have any options. And we see an N from Vince here. That is also really important. He's just going to be at a huge card disadvantage, and he's now going to be playing off the top of his deck.
Yeah, so now we see like this is a situation where Justin has to be dreading. He really has to hit energy here, and he has to hope Vince out of 6 cards does not hit any energy. So this is like huge, like please cross your fingers moment.
Yeah, but he did hit it, and we see an energy get attached to the Darkrai or the Sableye. Then we see a dark patch onto the Darkrai, so it's 2 energies already. And the more I think about it, this just feels like a really rough matchup for the Garbador player. Even though Garbador theoretically is going to have a really good matchup against things like Blastoise and Electric, I just don't see it translating very well against this type of Darkrai deck with so many different threats. You just can't handle all of them, and you're seeing it happen here right now.
Yeah, I mean like it's not even the threat of like attackers. It's more like the threat of options. The Darkrai deck has so many options it can do that the Landorus Garbodor deck really just can't cover it all. Like you can get knocked out of the game by Crushing Hammer. It can get knocked out of the game by a ton of catchers on Garbodors. There's just so many things that can go wrong that it's really tough for the Garbodor deck to really kind of put up a fight with anything.
Yeah, you get to see exactly what you're talking about right here, where the Sableye's Junk Hunt really put so much pressure on Justin just through that alone. He had no energy in play at the start of the last, not his most recent turn, but the turn before that. And now he had 4 energy in play, which meant 2 extra energy attachments, and that's just a lot of stuff that the Garbodor player really can't keep up with. Like the Garbodor player again was trying to play a very fair game. His entire game plan is, I don't want you to have extra energy in play. I want to play, 1 energy versus 1 energy. And Sableye says, nope, I'm doing whatever I want to do.
Yeah, so here we see an interesting situation. We're going to see a Night Spear come out, and, if we see a Juniper, and if Vince pulls another catcher out of the deck, then the game might just be over.
So ridiculous to even think that when Justin was in such a good position a couple turns ago. But yeah, we see that Terrakion go down without really putting up any pressure, and now the Trubbish gets activated, and that Landorus is just one shot away from getting knocked out as well. So it's just Justin's in the back foot again. I don't know how it happened, but it happened.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about the Trubbish coming up. Well, I guess it's okay. He kind of had to hope for some kind of way out. And unfortunately, he's going to get a supporter with this Trubbish, but at the same time, he's going to lose 3 prizes at this point with the Night Spear and bench damage. So this is going to be a really tough spot for Justin to get out of.
Yeah, it's really important to note just how rough a shape Justin's been in these last couple of games, where he's actually had to use Garbage Collection 2 times, plus the time that he used it on his first turn at the beginning of Game 1. So that's 3 different times that he's actually used that attack, and that's 3 more times than you'd really like to use it.
Yeah. Despite that card getting cards from the discard, it's really not that good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like decent, but it's not that great.
Yeah, you see a Juniper out of Justin, and obviously he's not feeling very good about the situation. It's not a good spot to be in. We're being perfectly frank here, and Vince once again stole the initiative, and he is in full control. While Justin honestly has not even a single energy in play. And I don't believe he even has a fighting energy to really do anything with.
Yeah, at this point, this really comes back to like him opting for the Darkrai instead of the Sableye. The Sableye is really what set all this up, and if you got rid of that Sableye, this situation may not have happened. But
well, we see it for a 4th time in this single match. Oh my goodness, we are. And he's going to pick up, what was it, a Juniper?
Another Juniper. So at this point, I would have maybe liked to see a fighting energy, because he does have the end. Your plan at this point is kind of just go, well, I'm going to end, and then I'm going to cross my fingers, and then maybe something will happen. Unfortunately, by getting Juniper here, it kind of almost seals the deal for these Darkrai's to just kind of overrun you.
Yeah, I might be wrong, and I could have sworn it was only trainer cards, but if it is, then yeah, the fighting energy would have been the correct play. But we see him draw his Juniper. He's obviously going to play it right now after playing his plus power. And yeah, well, I guess he doesn't even want to play the plus
You're
power.
right, it might be trainer cards. I'm not totally sure on that on the way Trubbish works.
Let's be honest, not very many people are. It's not an attack that gets used very often.
Yeah.
But we do see the catcher, and after the catcher, he extends the hand. Yeah, he kind of knew that the game was over when he didn't even bother playing the plus power. He was like, this game's over. Let me just see what I would have drawn or something like that. But somehow, some way, Vince pulled it off again. Game one was more of a lack of attackers by Justin. Game two was just really kind of his deck ran out of gas, and his draws weren't very helpful to him. You saw him have to garbage collect a supporter a couple times, and Vince just constantly had that gas going. The fact that he actually had to land judgment all of his energies away was unfortunate for him, but I mean that's just the way the game goes. Pokemon deal a lot of damage these days, and even something as big and beefy as Landorus still gets knocked out in 2 hits.
Yeah, the Garbador deck really is a metagame choice. It kind of punishes the decks that cut too many corners, and unfortunately for Justin, Vince's deck didn't cut as many corners as Justin's deck would have liked. So
yeah,
Vince moves on to the top 4.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he does. I believe our very own Kyle Pukasukovic is still in this top 8, so we'll have to see exactly who comes out victorious in these city championships.
All right, well, thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you in the top 4.